We've already seen how to duplicate transformations by using the keyboard shortcut Command or Control D on your keyboard. But what I haven't shown you so far is a command called Transform Each, which allows you to transform each copy of an object as you go to create some really interesting looks. So in this example here, I have a triangle in the bottom left-hand corner, and this triangle is actually pretty special. This triangle has what's called a blending mode applied to it, which allows this triangle to interact with objects that overlap it in certain ways. So if you look over here in the panels, you'll see this little transparency panel, and this setting is set to multiply. By default, it's set to normal. But in this case, we're going to set it to multiply because it's going to allow overlapping copies of this triangle to sort of blend with each other in a very unique way. And multiply means that each time they overlap each other, it's going to look darker than the overlying color. So what we want to do is create almost like a really cool pattern, like a wispy pattern that goes across the bottom of this page. And in order to do that, we're going to use a command called Transform Each. So let's go to the Object menu, choose Transform, and go down to Transform Each. You can see that there's a keyboard shortcut associated with this. It's basically the entire left-hand side of your keyboard and the letter D. If you're really playing the home game here, it would be Shift, Option, Command on the Mac, Shift, Alt, Control on the PC, and the letter D. But I recommend just going up to the Object menu and choosing Transform and Transform Each. Once you do that, you're going to be taken into a dialog box that looks something like this, and by default, yours probably looks like this. So everything is set just as it was before. You've got the horizontal and vertical scaling set to 100%, the move set to 0, angle set to 0, and so forth. And your reference point is also probably right there in the center. By default, if we were to change the angle of this, for instance, to something like 10 degrees, you can see when we do that, that it's going to create this little rotation on this object, but we're rotating it around the center point. What I want to do is I want to rotate it around this top point right here. And we do that just by setting the reference point right there at the bottom. That way we're going to have it kind of swinging out and swinging over as we go along. So now I've got it set to 10 degrees. I've got this set to the top. It doesn't look like we're doing a whole lot from here, but if I hit copy, you notice that I get that new copy made right there on the artboard. And now I've got all of those different parameters set. I could have changed its scale. I could have changed its movement left or right. I could have changed the rotation angle. Everything is able to be changed from that dialog box. And now if I hold down the Command key on the Mac, the Control key on the PC, and just press the letter D, you can see now that it creates this really cool pattern that I can have going across my document. And that's not the only thing you can do with this. If I undo all of these here, and I'll just hold down the Command key on the Mac, Control key on PC, and the letter Z until I get back to the original, if I go to the Object menu, choose Transform, Transform Each, let's change some of these other options. So we're already rotating at an angle of 10 degrees. We've got this anchor point set to the top right here. Let's go ahead and move this thing. Let's do negative pixels. Let's do -5 pixels. And let's move it vertically, -5 pixels. And let's change the horizontal scale to 110. And let's change the vertical scale to 115. Now I'll hit copy again. Now we've got all of those parameters being copied. So if I hold down the Command key, the Control key on the PC, and press the letter D multiple times, it's going to create something that looks like that, which as I zoom out, and as you can see, is a pretty cool little pattern that I've created. And this is all based on a triangle and a blending mode. So these are the types of things that you have to sort of come up with inside your head to create complex pieces of artwork. You don't have to be a master of drawing. You just have to be a master of thinking and figuring out how to create things like this without really having to do a whole lot at all. All I did was open up a dialog box and hit a few buttons, and now I've got this really cool pattern that I could use on a desktop wallpaper, maybe the background for a slide deck, or I could even use this, as a design for a logo maybe. Potentially I'd have to do some reworking, but you get the idea of where I'm going with this. Using the Transform Each command is a great way to create really interesting things out of ordinary objects. So give it a spin and see what you can come up with.